Today is Sunday, February the 19th, 2012. I'm going to document a Mesa Boogie Bass 400 Plus here that just came into my shop. What a monster. This thing is awesome. Here's what it's got in it. Got it up on the side. Look at that. It's got a dozen 6L6s in it. It has a crackle in it sometimes, although I have never been able to duplicate it. I just wanted to show you here. I'm going to probably have to turn the video on and off a couple of times. I've been working with this thing for the last 2 or 3 hours, trying to duplicate it. I have taken my, let me get it over here. I've taken my my IR thermometer. I usually do it flat. I've been measuring all the temperatures, all the tubes. I have gone through it very carefully here. You can see how the tubes are laid out. I don't want to get my finger in it because it's turned on. These 6 are parallel with these 6, so they're not. So they're parallel. One big row is parallel with the other long row. It does over 300 watts. Actually does. What a monster. Actually, I'm not finding much of anything wrong with it. I've checked it out quite well. Cleaned and cleaned and cleaned, and maybe that's all it needed. One of the things that I have found out about, I'm going to plug this little beast before it kills me, that I don't like, and I'm going to go through and tighten up the sockets, and that is, if you look in here very carefully, this line, I don't know if that's making it better or worse, but you probably can't really see it, but pin 8 of each tube is connected over to, here's pin 8 right here on every tube, and it's connected over to the socket. That's how it's grounded. That's how the cathode is grounded, and you get this ground through the screws, through the chassis. Not a good idea. That's really bad practice. They should have run a wire between them. That in grounding things to chassis like that, it may save production costs and time and what have you, but it also induces other problems, because that means we've got 12 tubes that if they don't get a good chassis ground, then we're going to have a little bit of a problem. It also, just randomly grounding to the chassis causes ground loops and hum. That part's a bad idea, and I don't like that about it. But anyway, let me lay this thing back down, hook it up, and I'll show you what kind of output it has. Okay, now I've got this beast hooked up to dummy loads. I'm using 4 ohms here. That's what the customer uses. It's hooked up to, these are 8 ohm loads. These things get hot too. This thing can make it, these are 8 ohms a piece and they're parallel. So I got 4 ohms down here. And I'm driving it at a kilohertz right there. There's our spectral analysis of it so far. Make sure I'm not overdriving it. I'm not. I do have it in linear mode. I've had many good gentlemen suggest I use logarithmic mode on the vertical scale and the horizontal scale, but I've got it in linear at the moment. But anyway, there's our sine wave output. I've got all the pots turned completely up. Not all the pots. I've got everything set at mid. Well, I said it was. Okay, let's set everything at mid. Fumble, fumble, fumble. Okay, everything's set in the middle. And all the gain pots are all the way up. The reason I do that is so I can control it over here. Okay, now we've got it down at minus 40 dB. And I can vary the gain right here up to clipping. There it is right there. Wow, look at that. 33.2 volts. About 6.8% distortion. We drive this thing all the way up to 10%, which is generally where I measure them. Call that 35 volts. 35 volts is a lot of power across 4 ohms. Gotta get my calculator here. $35 squared 8 divide. Nope, 4 divide, I'm sorry. 35 squared, I'm so used to 8, 4 divide. 306 watts. That's what this thing will do. Quite a monster. I've measured it at the lower frequencies. I won't go through all of that. Doesn't do quite as well down there. It's not a stereo amp. But what a beauty. You know, dozen 6L6s. And they all match quite well. I really don't see anything wrong with them. And I can't... I've looked at the cathodes of each one. So the cathode resistors are good. Looked at the plate of each one. Of course, they're all strapped together. Looked at the grids of each one with an oscilloscope. Of course, they're strapped together too. Well, they do have a resistor between them. Everything is just peachy. So I don't know if it's going to crackle anymore or not. Maybe it just needed a gigantic cleaning, but don't get to see one of these every day, and I thought you might enjoy it. Well, I couldn't take these pins being ungrounded, like I pointed out just a second ago. So I did run a copper wire. Oh, that just blinds you, doesn't it? I did run, yeah, I can see that. See, this one up here is actually grounded. I believe this one is too, I'm not sure. This one's grounded back to the XLR, pin 1, etc. This has a legitimate ground now. So the cathodes are actually connected to ground through a wire and not just through the chassis. So I don't know if that'll help or not. May not do diddly for it, but makes me happier.